theyeshiva.net.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Baruchim Abayim, welcome. So the last story we learned in the Gemarah, which was the end of Daf Gimel Amud Beis in Pesachim, is that Yochanan and Chakukah went out to check the matzav, the situation with the grain. He came back and they asked him what is going on, and he said that the barley turned out well because he didn't want to say that the wheat didn't turn out well. Their response was, this is the type of news you can tell to the horses and the donkeys, because barley is an animal fodder, where wheat is considered human food, Meichel Adam, versus barley, which was always considered Meichel Behema, primarily the food that was given to one's animals, like horses, donkeys, etc. So that was their response when he spoke about the barley. Instead of speaking about the wheat, it's like, this is news for the horses. This is not our food, this is their food. This you should tell the horses and donkeys. So the Gemarah wants to know, what should have he said? What should have he said? Should have he said that the wheat turned out bad? The wheat turned out horrible? When we're trying to say that words are powerful and the way we speak has an impact. Yeah. So the Gemarah says he should have said, last year's wheat turned out well. Or, alternatively, the lentils, the adoshim turned out well, since that is also human food. Okay. That was the story. In this whole discussion here, just I think as a general observation, one sees how Chazal, how Torah saw the power of words. You would think, l'maynaf kamina, who cares? The wheat turned out badly. So say the wheat is horrible. Unfortunately, the wheat turned out badly. It's not just you want the person shouldn't say certain words. Apparently, the power of words has an impact not only on the person, but also on reality. How we speak about something, how we frame it, in what context we put it, and how we define it actually has a serious influence and an impact on reality. Just like Hashem created the world through words, Basara Mamoris Nivra Ha'olam. So it says in Zohar that through a person's words, the world is preserved. The way we speak about things, the way we speak about reality, has an impact on that reality itself. Just like there's the famous expression of the Tzemach Tzedek, Tracht gut, wird sein gut. In other words, your thoughts have power. So speech, even more than thoughts, it brings out the thoughts in a concrete, revealed way. The way we speak about things, it's not about denial. Somebody asked me, what the Chazal were in denial? You're not allowed to speak about reality. It's not about denial. It's not about, oh, we're not acknowledging that the wheat harvest was not good. Of course you are. You got to know what's going on in the field. You have to know what you have to eat, what you have to sell. It's not about denial. That's never a benefit. It's rather about defining what the focus is on, how you see reality. The dibur itself has a tremendous power. Now, before we go further, I just want to add one more thing about the story. Everybody, these types of stories at first glance are a little difficult to understand. I mean, there's a man Yochanan, and he says that the barley turned out nice, and they give him this mussar, go speak to the horses. And then the Gemarah says what he should have said. Chazal felt somehow that these stories belong in Gemarah to teach you about the power of words. That's on one level. But on another level, every single story in the entire Shas, Bavli and Yerushalmi, all the Medrashim, Toseftas, Braises, Sifra, Sifri, all the Medrashim, Rishonim, all stories contain many levels of understanding. This is brought already, many Svardim, that all the stories in the Chazal, you have it al pi pshat, a literal level. You also have it al pi remez, al pi drush, al pi soid, al pi avoida. So on one level, a story could seem very simple, and it's a conversation about horses and donkeys and lentils and barley and wheat. On another level, the story contains sometimes references, or it intimates, or it alludes to a whole different conversation, a whole different reality. I'm going to give you an example from this story. When I was a bacher, I was a yeshiva bacher, so I was a teenager at the time. It was Tafshin Nun, 1990. So Tu B'Shvat, Chamish Asa B'Shvat, when we eat the peiros of the Shivas Haminim, the 7 species with which Eretz Yisrael was praised, Eretz Chitu, Sa'ira, Geffen, Te'ena Rimen, a land of wheat and barley and vines, grapes and figs and pomegranates and olives and dates, Dvash. Those are the Shivas Haminim. So it happened to be Shabbos. It was Shabbos Parshas Vayishlach, Chamish Asa B'Shvat. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe had a Farbrengen that Shabbos. And during his first talk of the Farbrengen, he discussed the meaning of the Shivas Haminim, the 7 species of Eretz Yisrael, from a spiritual perspective, what they represent. In the conversation, he told over the story of the Gemarah Mesachos Pesachim, this whole story. And he said that the whole story was an exchange about Avodas Hashem. It was a conversation about how to serve Hashem. In addition, of course, to the literal, doesn't take away the literal, but he said it's also a much deeper conversation about Avodas Hashem. And he explained it at length, with a lot of points and a lot of explanations. I'm going to share with you one nekuda that I myself had the schus to hear from him that Shabbos. And I remember thinking when the Rebbe said it, I knew the Gemarah, we learned the Gemarah Pesachim. It's, even those who don't go through the whole Pesachim, but at least Dav Gimel, they still remember. We knew the Gemarah Pesachim. And it was absolutely astounding and inspiring to be able to hear the whole story, a short story, from a spiritual perspective, the way it guides a person emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. And he said that this was actually a very deep debate, because when we speak about a person and an animal, they exist not only outside, they exist also inside of ourselves. In every person, there are 2 souls. There's a Nefesh Elikis, there's a Nefesh HaBahamas. The Nefesh Elikis, that's the Adam in the Adam. And the Nefesh HaBahamas is the Behema in the Adam. Within the person itself, you have the human in the human. Adam, as the Shalah says, means Adama, earth, but it also means Adame, Le'elyon. I reflect the divine. And the Behema in the person, the animal in the person, the beast in the person, is the animal consciousness that every person has. And we operate on 2 levels of consciousness. Sometimes our entire lives we're only in touch with 1 level of consciousness. But a person doesn't have 1 soul, 1 engine, 1 self, but 2. One is divine, it's a chelik elokam imal mamish, it's a piece of Hashem kavayachal. It's godliness itself, it's divine. And one is an animal. It's that part that makes us part and parcel of what we would call the zoological species. It's why so many people, even self-respecting people, can claim that we have evolved. We have evolved essentially from animals. In other words, when you look in the mirror, what you're seeing is just an evolved ape. In some ways evolved, in some ways devolved, because there's a part of the human being that is really an animal. Our interests are animalistic. It's the focus, just self-preservation, self-gratification. It's not bad, it's just an animal. Animals could be very cute. They can also be wild, they can also be dangerous. Depends where your animal is, how much you educated it, how much you tamed it. There's 2 souls. Chita, wheat, which is also the gematria of 22, Chav Beis, Chita is Chestasei, 22 letters of Torah, represents Michael Adam, the food of the human. Sa'irim is Michael Behema. It's the food of the animal. Esav is called Ish Sa'ir, Ish Seir, Yodei Tzayid, Ish Sada, a man of the field, Admoini, a redhead, etc. Yaakov is Ish Tam Yoshev Ahalam. So you have Chita and Sa'ir. In a person's life, there's 2 different avodas. One is to focus on your godly soul, and one is to educate and discipline and elevate your animal soul. Focusing on your godly soul is realizing how beautiful you are, how holy you are, how godly you are. That in every situation, you're always one with Hashem, and nothing can destroy that connection. That's an invincible connection and relationship where you're always wholesome, confident, fully divine, and fully sacred, and nothing could diminish that, nothing could compromise that. The animal soul is the part where there could be brokenness, there could be bruteness, where the person could become disassociated from their true self, even from the true animal self. And like an animal, it needs education. It needs to be elevated, it needs to be sublimated, it needs to be dealt with, because the animal doesn't have full awareness. It sees like an animal. It sees something is good, and it runs for it. It could be hazardous, it could be dangerous. The animal doesn't have the full perspective. So therefore, sometimes I'm completely locked into my animal soul, and I don't see who I am, I don't see all of reality, and much of life is dealing with your animal soul, with its instincts, with its cravings, with its passions, with its addictions, and that's a very different type of avodah than focusing on your godly soul. The Gemarah says in Brachas, Asur la'adam sheyoichal koydem sheyitin lebehemtai. You're not allowed to eat breakfast if your puppy is hungry. If you're animal, you have an animal, you have a sheep, you have a goat, you have cows, you have chickens, and they're starving, you're not allowed to eat yourself. Shenemar, we say in Krishma, v'nosati esav b'sadcha livhemtecha v'hader v'achalta v'savata. First, you got to give grass to your animal, and then you can eat and be satiated. You're not allowed to eat yourself before your animals eat. It's a fascinating halacha. A lot of people don't know this halacha. Yeah. Taichus the Balatanya L'Kuta Torah. You can't feed the Adam in you if you didn't feed the Behema in you. If you didn't deal with your Nefesh HaBahamis, if you ignore your animal soul as though it doesn't exist, you're never ultimately going to be able to feed your Nefesh HaLikus, because that's part of you. You can't ignore your Nefesh HaBahamis. You have to work with it, you have to feed it, you have to elevate it, you have to inspire it. If not, you're not going to be able to get to your Nefesh HaLikus, because these two souls work together. You can't cut off a part of yourself and make believe it doesn't exist. You have to work with your animal soul. You can't ignore it. So Yochanan Chakukah goes out to the villages to see the matzav of the Tvuah. What's the idea of Tvuah? When you plant, you take one seed or a few seeds, you put it in the earth, and then a unique thing happens. Suddenly you have a whole wheat field with stalks of wheat, or stalks of barley, or stalks of grain, spelt, oats, rye, that have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of seed from the seeds that you planted. In other words, you take a few seeds, you put it in the ground, and it multiplies many, many times in the result. The neshama uzratiya libar, the neshama was planted by Hashem into the earth, into the world. The neshama is sent down into the earth like a seed, but what grows from it is extraordinary. What the neshama creates in this world, through its Torah, through its mitzvahs, through its ma'asim tovim, is like all the grain fields, and with trees it's even more. You plant a seed and a whole tree. You plant a seed and a huge tree comes out with fruits, and it all came from that seed. Uzratiya libaretz. So Yochanan, so the whole avodas Hashem in this world is really looking at the tfuah, looking at the grain that grows from the seed that was planted in the earth, which is like the neshama coming into the body. Yochanan Chakukah wanted to see what the matzav is. So he says, this year, So'irim nasu yafas. At this time, there's a special opportunity, the energy is to work with the Nefesh HaBahamis, with the animal soul. So'irim nasu yafas, the barley. And that explains why he said So'irim nasu yafas. Why didn't he know about Lashon Nekiyah? Why didn't he know about Lashon Kavod? He wasn't only trying to denigrate the wheat. He was trying to bring out something very powerful. That now there could be tremendous success. What you have to focus on is on the barley. There's a yoifi, there's a beauty, there's a hatzlach in the work with the animal soul. So they told him, Seyu basel l'susam v'chamayrim. This news you have to go tell the horses and the donkeys. It wasn't only disparaging and negative, it was also a positive thing. This is the news you got to tell the animals in you. This is tremendous news for the animals in you. And yet it's also critical. And the Gemarah says he should have said something else. He should have spoken about wheat. He should have spoken about lentils. Say last year the wheat was good. Why? So here is what the Gemarah is teaching, what they were teaching him. And that is that if you ever want to be successful with your animal soul, you always have to be able to focus on your godly soul. You always have to be able to focus on your godly soul. You always have to see yourself in the context of godliness. You always have to see the infinite light in you, the infinite potential in you, and with that context, with that backdrop, you can go confront your animal soul. If not, you could confront it as a broken person. You always have to be able to see yourself in the context of your nefesh elikis, of your godly soul, and that's when you can go out and work with your animal soul. This is one nekuda bekitza nimritz of a whole arichas. I just wanted to mention it. Let's now continue to the next piece, Daf Daled Amud Aleph, Zog the Gemarah. Rabbi bar Achua de Rabbi Chia u bar Achse. Rav was bar Achua. He was the son of the brother of Rabbi Chia, u bar Achse, and he was the son of his sister. What does this mean? Rav was a nephew of Rabbi Chia from two sides. He was a son of Rabbi Chia's brother, and he was a son of Rabbi Chia's sister. Now here, we have a shtickle problem. That means his father and his mother were siblings. If his father was a brother of Rabbi Chia, and his mother was a sister of Rabbi Chia, that means a brother married a sister, right? We have a serious problem here. The Gemarah says that Rav was the son of the brother of Rabbi Chia and the son of the sister of Rabbi Chia. So Rashi, thank God, saves the situation and says, don't get scared. There was no incest. Rav bar Achva bar Achta Rabbi Chia. Zok Rashi. Aivu aviv shel Rav. Rav had a father. Now let's remember who Rav was. I mentioned this yesterday, a few days ago. Rav is considered to be the first generation of Amoraim and the last generation of Tanoim. He is the transmission. He represents the transmission period of the Tanoim to the Amoraim. He's a student of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the editor of the Mishnah, who is from the last generation of Tanoim, and he begins the era of the Amoraim. Rav is born in Babylonia, present-day Iraq. He goes up to Eretz Yisrael to learn Torah there from Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and from his uncle Rabbi Chia. Rav goes back down to Bavel. He creates the huge yeshiva in Surah, which lasts for more than 8 centuries. I told you last time I can only imagine the deficit of that yeshiva if it lasted for 800 years. And Rav was the Rosh Yeshiva of Surah, like his colleague Shmuel, who was Rosh Yeshiva of Pumbedisa. These are the first two people who represent the first generation of Amoraim, and that's why the whole Shas consists of discussions and debates and disputes and conversations between Rav and Shmuel. Rav had an uncle. His name was Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia is very significant in history because just like Rabbi Yehuda, edited the Mishnah, Rabbi Chia is the one who edited all of the Brises, which never made it into the Mishnah. This was the uncle of Rav. He wasn't only his teacher, he was also his uncle. So here we're learning that he was his uncle from two sides, father and mother. What does this mean? Zakrashi. Aivu aviv shel Rav. Aivu was the father of Rav, achiv shel Rabbi Chia. He was a brother of Rabbi Chia, min ha'av, from Rabbi Chia's father. Kedamrin, we paid a comment to Sanhedrin. We learned Sanhedrin daf hey, Aivu, Chana, Shila, Marsa, Rabbi Chia, Kula, Bani, de Rabbi Acha, Mikvari, Hava. There was a man named Rabbi Acha from Kvari, and he had 5 children. Aivu, Chana, Shila, Marsa, and Rabbi Chia. So Aivu and Rabbi Chia were siblings. They were brothers from the same father. They had the same father. So their father, Rabbi Acha, obviously married a woman, had a child, Aivu, right? Had a child, Aivu, and perhaps other children. Then what happens? Their mother, Aivu's mother, either they probably passes away or whatever happens, and Rabbi Acha remarries. Rabbi Acha remarries another woman. Okay. In that marriage, they have a child. This child's name is Chia. That's Rav Chia. That other woman, now let's see weiter. V'ima shaisa ima shal Rav. Ima, who was the mother of Rav, nice name, Aivu and Ima. Achoyse Reb Chia haisa min ha'em. Was Reb Chia's sister, but only from the mother. Meaning, you understand, Aivu had a father. There was a man named Reb Acha. Reb Acha was married. They had a child, Aivu. That wife apparently passed away. Or whatever the circumstances were, but they weren't married anymore. So this man, Reb Acha, remarried another woman, on a second wife. They had a child, Rav Chia. They named him Chia. But this second wife, the Zivuk Sheni, she was also previously married. And in her previous marriage, she had a daughter. That daughter's name was Ima. Now she married Reb Acha. So you understand what happened? And together they had a child, Chia. So Chia had a step-brother from his father's side, and he had a step-sister from his mother's side. His step-brother from his father's side was Ivu. They only shared one father, right? Because the mother was a second mother. So he was a step-brother from Ivu, only from his father. He also had a step-sister from his mother's side, because the father was a different father. The father was Rabbi, and the Ima's father was another father, the first marriage of the second wife. So Reb Chia had a brother, a half-brother. I said step. A half-brother. I meant a half-brother and a half-sister. Now what happened? Ivu and Ima got married. Ivu and Ima. You're looking at me as though I'm crazy. It's so complicated? Huh? It's clear, no? Okay, I'm saying something. Ivu and Ima got married. So it's a funny thing, because it was like, for Reb Chia, it was like his brother and his sister married each other. But halachically, it's not a problem, right? Because Ivu and Ima didn't have a connection. Ivu had a set of parents, and Ima had a set of parents. It happened to be that in Reb Chia, they came together. Because Ivu's father and Ima's mother, ultimately, there was that connection through Reb Chia. Because Ivu's father, Reb Acha, had to remarry, and Ima's mother had to remarry and married him, and they had a son, Reb Chia. So Rav was a child of Ivu and Ima. So when Rav looked at Reb Chia, he called him my uncle. How was he his uncle? It was his father's brother. It was also his mother's brother. Of course, a half a brother. Couldn't be a full brother, because then you would have a problem. Yeah, Reb Shmuel? You want to know why we're discussing Rav's background suddenly? Excellent question. The answer is because it's an introduction to the story. There's a story that continues. When Rav went up there, what does it mean, went up there? Remember, this is Talmud Bavli. It's being written and redacted in Bavel. So when you say went up, it means from Babylonia to Eretz Yisrael to there, not here. There would mean the Holy Land. Lahasim, whenever it says Lahasim, means there, because we're talking from the perspective of Babylonia. When he went up there, he went up to Eretz Yisrael. And who did he meet in Eretz Yisrael? He met his uncle, Reb Chia, because Reb Chia lived in Eretz Yisrael. Amalei, Reb Chia, the uncle tells his nephew Rav, Ivu, Kayam. Ivu, in other words, your father, or in other words, my brother. Is he alive? He wasn't alive. But Rav didn't want to say that. Amalei, so Rav tells his uncle, V'ima kayemes? Why don't you ask about mommy? Why are you asking me only about Tati? You can't tell me you're asking about Tati because he's your brother, because mommy is your sister. So you're telling me your father is alive? What about, is mother alive? Is Ima alive? Why don't you ask her? She's your sister. Let's see Rashi. Kisalik Rav me'irei me'bavel e'tisol shayir Reb Chia sham. Amar Reb Chia le'Rav. Ivu avicha kayam? Is Ivu alive? Amar le'Rav. Ima kayam is b'loshen she'ela. It's a question, a rhetorical question. Kiloymar. Ad shata mashal alavi sha'al alimi sha'afi achaischa. Instead of only asking about Tati, ask about mommy. She's also your sister. If she wouldn't be your sister, you could say a person wants to know what's happening with his brother. Why should he ask about Rav's mother? He has no relationship to Rav's mother. But here, direct relationship. But here, it's also his sister, so why aren't you asking me about the sister? Amalei, so Reb Chia said, okay, second try. Ima kayemes? Is Ima alive? Is your mother alive? She wasn't alive. If she was, he would have said, of course. Thank God, she's fine. But she wasn't. So Amalei, he says, V'aivu kayam. Why don't you ask if Ivu was alive? Which, of course, he just did. So when he asked if Ivu was alive, he said, why don't you ask about Ima? When he asked about Ima, he said, why don't you ask about Ivu? Which basically meant that there was nothing to ask because they have both passed away. Rashi, Amalei, Oid Reb Chia le'Rav, V'ima achoisi kayemes? Amalei Rav, Ivu kayam, v'avei, v'avi, klum kayamu, adayin le'yeshiv yisicha olav. Why'd you jump to my mother when I didn't answer you for my father? Of course, I didn't want to answer you. But you're asking about my mother. Why aren't you asking about my father? You didn't get an answer yet. Go back to my father. Umei love haven. And as a result, Reb Chia automatically understood the sad truth that his half-brother, Ivu, and his half-sister, Ima, have both passed on to the next world, and that's why Rav simply doesn't want to say explicitly that they're gone, and therefore he said it in this roundabout way, similar to what we learned before with Reb Kahana, who didn't want to say clearly that, Rabbi Yeshua, who didn't want to say clearly that Reb Kahana passed away. Monsey diba huksil. Here is a very interesting addition in Rashi, which is a powerful lesson in life. V'yesh ha'imrim, other people learn this Gemarah differently. Remember, in Gemarah, there's no question marks. Rashi put in question marks. Evu kayam, v'ima kayemes, ima kayemes, evu kayam. V'yesh ha'imrim b'nichusa. It's not a question mark, and it's an exclamation point. B'nichusa means he's actually saying a statement, not asking. Ha'yemeshiv rav al misha eino shoyel kadei sheyavin min haklal. You have to learn this Gemarah differently. Rav was actually answering, not asking, but answering about the person he wasn't asking so that he should understand from the summation what is happening. A completely different interpretation. In other words, when Reb Chia told him, Aivu Kayam, is your father alive? He said, Ima Kayemes, mother is alive. That's what he said. Not asking Kayemes. Even though she wasn't. Right? He said, Ima Kayemes. Amalei, so he said, Ima Kayemes? Really? Your mother is alive? He said, father is alive. In other words, the fact that he couldn't answer yes, and he changed the subject from the kalal, he understood that they both passed away. So Rashi v'koshe be'enai. This interpretation is difficult in my eyes. Why? Loimar, this would mean sheyoitzi Rav dvar sheker mepiv, that Rav would utter an untruth, a falsehood. Because when he says, is Aivu alive? According to this, he says, Ima is alive. Ima is alive, Aivu is alive. It's not true. According to Rashi's interpretation, the first interpretation, he didn't lie. He said, instead of asking about my father, why don't you ask about my mother? He didn't say something untrue. Instead of asking about my mother, why don't you ask about my father? And that's what Reb Chia understood. What happened now? When Reb Chia understood the truth that he's lost both of his siblings, Amar Leila Shammai, Reb Chia tells his Shammai is a shamash in Aramaic, a servant, Chloitzli minoli, take off my shoes. It's time to mourn. Even though they may have passed away years earlier, or months earlier, there's no date here. But even though he hears about it much later, it's not that he hears about it when it happened, take off my shoes for grieving. And now he adds, and later, lead me, take my kelim, my garments with me, following me to the Beis HaMerchetz, to the bathing place, to the bathing house, so I should be able to bathe after morning, and I'm going to put on clothes. Zog the Gemarah, what's this about? Shma min atlas. From this statement of Reb Chia, you learn out three halachas. Number one, Shma min avel aser b'nilas hasandal. One we learn is that an avel, somebody in mourning, is forbidden to wear his regular leather shoes. And the chiddush here is, we're not talking a regular state of avelis. It's what we call a shmur rechaika, meaning you hear about something 30 days after it happened, months after it happened, years after it happened. But certainly 30 days, the minimum would be 30 days after death. Still, he has to take off his shoes. Number two, Shma Mina, second thing we learn is, Shmur Rechaikein in Heges El Yom Echad. When you hear the sad news about the loved one's death after 30 days since the passing, the Avelis, the mourning period, doesn't continue for 7 days. Shiva, it continues for 1 day. It lasts for 1 day.
Don't you learn another thing? There's no Kriya.
Yeah, we'll see in a moment. Number three, Shema Mina, the third thing we learn is Miktzas Hayom Kekulai. When it comes to the halachas of mourning, part of the day, halachically, we consider as the entire day. In other words, even when we say it's 1 day, it doesn't have to be one full day. It could be part of that 1 day. Just like 7 days, the seventh day could be part of the seventh day. Let's see Rashi.
Where do we see that from?
We'll see in a moment. Let's see Rashi. Good question. Where do you see it? Allow me now to mourn for my brother and sister who I just found out passed away. Why is he telling this to him now? He was teaching a halacha to his students. When you hear the news of death after 30 days, it only applies for 1 day, the morning. He doesn't have to sit as an aval a whole day. What's the proof? Since he told them, we're going to go to the bathing bath, to the bathing house. Apparently, why are you talking about this today? You'll tell your shamash tomorrow. Tomorrow you could go to the Beis HaMerchatz. Alma shah achas dai. Is a raya 1 hour or a span of time during the day of Avelis is fine. So already today, prepare the clothes for the Beis HaMerchatz because miktzas hayom ke kuloi. And because miktzas hayom ke kuloi, therefore we could go to the Beis HaMerchatz today. So these are the 3 halachas we learned, that when the avel here's a shmur rechaika about somebody who passed away more than 30 days earlier, so he has all of the isurim, all of the prohibitions that an avel has, all of the limitations. For example, bathing, smearing oil, washing, wearing shoes, etc. Although, as we could see here, he doesn't have to do all the maisim that an avel usually does. For example, kriya, tearing the garments. He has to do something, which is taking off his shoes. That's why Rabbi says that. But he doesn't have to do all the acts that lo yaleinu v'lo yaleichem an avel usually does. So therefore, that's the shit of most poskim, that there's no kriya, there's no tearing of the garments by a shmur rechaika. Although I have to say, you can't mamish prove it because other poskim say this wasn't a father and a mother. This was a brother and a sister, maybe a father and a mother. Even a shmur rechaika would be more serious, and one has to do kriya. But this is a machlaikas of the poskim. Right, this is even a stepbrother and sister. Yeah, half brother. I said step, I meant to say half, yeah. It wasn't step. I said before step, I meant half brother, half sister. Well, step sometimes could be, yeah. I guess, okay.
I thought half just meant that there was another relationship.
There was another relationship, right? Okay, whatever the term is, yeah. Whatever that. Somebody was asking something here? What'd you say? No, Rabbi had a father and a mother. That was his father and mother. But his sister and brother were only from one.
He's asking if the stepmother had a halacha like an actual relative.
Oh, generally. It's usually not the same, no. I mean, people do out of respect and this, but if there's mamish is there no blood relation? Right. That's why I'm asking what he meant by step. Okay.
You're saying a step could also mean without any biological.
Whatever, I'm not sure with the definitions, but you could look it up. That's what I thought. Step could include no biological, right? Yeah. That's why I think the term here is half. Zok the Gemarah, Ahuda Amar. There was an individual who would always say, Dunu Dini. An interesting man. Any debate, financial debate with anybody, he said, I don't give anything till we go to court. Everything. You owe me $10, let's go to court. Everything. Whenever there was a debate, Dunu Dini. Dunu Dini means, let them judge my case in Besdin. Let's go to a Jewish court. And he would not give up anything, only in court. We got to go to Beis.
The same sound said, what's Allah?
Yeah. Amri, they said about him, Shmami Nami Don Kasi. From this nature of his, to always say Dunu Dini, obviously he came from the Shevet Don. Why? Because Yaakov, when he was blessing all of his sons, he gave Don a special blessing. The Ksiv, it says by Don Yodin Amoy Ka'achat Shifti Yisrael. Don will judge the nation. Don Yodin Amoy Ka'achat Shifti Yisrael. Don will judge the nation like one of the unique shvatim of the Jewish people. Rashi says, any business dealing with any person, he would always say, if there was any question, any issue, come to court. He wouldn't listen to anybody. There had to be a dayan, had to be a psak. That was the only thing he accepted. They said this guy's blood has to be from Shevet Don because they have a special sensitivity to this. That you could see from people's speech who they are. That's the continuation, that's the theme here. Hahuda v'kazal v'amad. There was another man who used to say, this maybe you'll relate to more, Akif Yama Asisne Birasa. On the shore of the ocean, on the ocean shore, at the beach, that's where I'm going to construct my palace. I want to live by the water. You ever heard of somebody saying that? I have my dream house, yeah, a few people sitting here. I have my dream house at the water. There's quite a few people here thinking about retirement. They're going to retire, and the water, you want to wake up in the morning and see sunrise from the Atlantic or ocean or even the Pacific Ocean. Batku, they checked him out. They checked his genealogy, Vashkichu, and they found him Zvulun Kaasi. Came from the tribe of Zvulun. The Ksiv by Zvulun, it says, Zvulun l'chayf yamim yishken. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Yaakov Avinu says, Zvulun will dwell by the chayf yamim, by the shores of the sea. So this man who was dreaming to live by the sea came from Zvulun. Rashi says, Akef Yama, Kef is the bank, Yama is the sea, Akef Yama, like the bank of the river, the bank of the sea, Asisna Birasa, Asakin Biroinus. That's where I will construct my palaces. Im Hayuli Paltin Livnois. If, this is a Jew speaking, if and when I win the lottery, and I have a paltin, a palace to build, lo hayisi koivam elal svasayam. The only place where that palace is being put up is at the bank of the sea. Ubechuvas hagoyne motzisi akef yama asna barasa. That's the girsa. Upirish, the meaning is like this: kachoyim ishtabeich besvasayam. Okay, according to this, he was praising the Svas Hayam, the bank of the river. Omer, Tomid Sanoyim shal Svas Hayam, Broishim heim b'mekoymes acherim. V'loshen zeh hagun, sne b'loshen arami, asne b'roish broisa. What Rashi is saying is a different interpretation. It's the words I looked it up here in the, they have here in the Masifta Gemarah, the explanations of Rashi, Parshas the words. Rashi gives a little bit of a different girsa, which has a little bit of a different interpretation. The literal interpretation is, if I have palaces, I'm going to build them. Akef yami asisni birasa. I'm going to build my birasa, my biroinas, my palaces. The Tshuvas Hagoyinim is Akef yama asna birasa. So he was praising the Svas Hayam, and he was saying snoyim. Snoyim comes from the word sneh, which are like Moshe Rabbeinu, the thorn bush. Thorn bushes at the bank of the river are like cedar trees in other places. In other words, to have it as a little chatkele, a little homeless shelter by the sea is better than a penthouse above Central Park or Madison Avenue. To have a thorn bush by the water is kibroishim. It's like a tall, splendid cedar tree in other places. That's what, according to Tshuvas Hagoyim, that's what he was saying. V'loshen zeh hagunhu. It's a proper way of saying it's sne b'loshen arami asna, and broish is brusa. So akef yama asna, the sne is broish, is brusa, is a big, beautiful, splendid cedar tree somewhere else. But the point is, this man loves the water. Stam a little ha'arin. In the first case, they said shma mina midon ka'asi. It's a raya, comes from don. In the second story, what do they say? Batku. Why in the first case there was no bdika? L'chayra pashat, l'chayra. The guy walking around, let's go to the dayan, it's not mamish, I don't want to say not normal, but it's not a regular thing, yeah? Can I borrow your pen? Let's go to the dayan. Okay, that's not what it means probably. But any maso matin, we're going to the din. They said, this is not regular, this guy's coming from Don. When a guy says, I have my dream house by the ocean, it's not get a raya for you from Zvulun. Yeah, not from Zvulun, you could just be Jewish, doesn't mean you're from Zvulun. But the fact is, they always used to say, they always spoke about it, so Batku, they were Baidik, and they found indeed it's from Zvulun. What's the point of all of this? The point of all of this is the power of words, the power of the way people speak. It reveals about them, it reveals where they come from, it reveals who they are, and it has an impact on life. That's the summation of this entire sugya. And here, officially, the Gemarah concluded explaining the word oir. Finally, we figured out that oir means night, and the only reason we have to be so ambiguous and say oir lar basar instead of leilar basar is because the Tana wanted to use a beautiful, bright, luminescent language, pun intended, especially that it was the beginning of a Masechta, Pesach Dvarecha, Yoyir, as the Pasuk says in Tehillim Kuf Yates, when you open your mouth, your word, they should be filled with light. So he wants to use the word Oir, and that is the Lishna Ma'al Yehu, the Nakat, as he said. That's why the Tana chose the word Oir instead of the word Leil, in addition to what we quoted earlier from the Raiva, that there's also halacha that you have to do B'dikas Chametz right by nightfall when there's still a little light and not delay it later, and that's why he uses the word Oir and not Leil in all the places we use as Oir, which is brought la halacha l'maisa. Zvulun has money to support Yisachar, yeah. Okay, Be'ezer Hashem, we give you a bracha, you should have the money and build a palace. I mean, amen. Oh, the fact that you come from Zvulun doesn't mean you got all the money. I mean, probably Zvulun himself at different periods, no? That was the promise. It means every person of Zvulun always had money. There was always a cash flow. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
When it describes God in the Chumash,
Yeah.
it identifies him with which animal?
The Nachash. Yeah.
Yeah. So you would think from that there's a cleverness in God too. It would make him want to run and have it adjudicated.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Perhaps. Yeah. He wanted everything adjudicated. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying that
Fear. Everything should be fear.
the question that he's going to strike.
Right. Could be. I don't know. Could be. Yeah. Says the Gemarah. Okay. Now the fun is over. And Masechta Pesachim takes a sharp turn. V'hashta now, the lekula v'hashta now, the Chaim now that we established the lekula alma urtuhu. Now that we established that everybody holds that is urta, means night. Till now we had a question: does mean day? Does mean night? Rabbi Huna said it's day. Rabbi Yehuda said it's night. We thought Rabbi Huna maybe means you have to do b'dikas chametz in the morning. But now that we established that was a mistake, it was our erroneous presumption, our erroneous interpretation of Rabbi Huna. But really, he also meant night. He just used to call night nigi. That was his euphemism for night. So hashta de l'kaimel on the l'kol alma or two michdi. Let's see. Michdi means let's reflect. Let's see. We have now a problem. Now here you'll see an exact example of how halacha is constructed. In other words, when we learn halacha, this is what you do. You open a Shulchan Aruch or you go to a share of halacha. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is how you do it. This is when you do it. But everything had to be constructed. It's like when you walk into a house, don't take it for granted. Somebody had to lay the foundations. There was a lot of sweat here. There was a lot of planning here. It's built. But every single pipe and every single nuance is existing here because of a plan, because of a vision. You come into the empty house. Shulchan Aruch means literally a set table. When you walk in Friday night to the set table, a lot of men don't realize there was a woman who set it. There was somebody who made the food. It's not like the salad, abracadabra, kadu, a salad emerged. I mean, some men have that imagination. Abracadabra, salad, fish, kugel, meat, chaluptzes, dessert, ice cream, kompot. Shulchan Aruch is a set table. Somebody had to set the table. Somebody had to make the food. Somebody had to buy the food. Somebody had to plant. Somebody had to cook. Somebody had to prepare. Yeah, that's how Shulchan Aruch has a preliminary to Shulchan Aruch. Aruch is the final product. Here we're going into the boiler room, to the construction of the halach. And here you see it very clearly. Michdi, let's see. Michdi, let's see. I say this because many people today, they hear the word halacha, they don't understand that there's a whole process. Nothing exists in a vacuum. A rabbi wakes up one morning, let's make a new mitzvah. Let's make a new takana. Let's make a new gzeira. There's always a process. There's a structure. You could trace it back all the way to the genesis, to the nucleus, to the atomic particles, so to speak, that make up all the molecules of halacha. So he says, Michti, let's see. Bein le Rabbi Yehuda, bein le Rabbi Meir. Whether you hold like Rabbi Yehuda or you hold like Rabbi Meir, which we didn't learn yet about. But we're going to learn later on Daf Yud Aleph that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir have a big argument when you're not allowed to eat chametz from. Min ha-Torah, you're not allowed to eat chametz from chatzos, from midday Erev Pesach. And that's the time you have to get rid of your chametz. Let's say sunrise is at 6 o'clock, just for simplicity purposes. 12 o'clock p.m. you have to get rid of your chametz. Tashbisu, as we'll see on Daf Hey at length, how we know that. Vasep is 12, maybe 2, maybe 11. The Chachamim were afraid, remember there were no clocks. So people, how did they tell time? They would look up and they would say, it must be 7 in the morning, it must be 2-ish, it must be 4-ish. That's how they lived. So Mela, the hours, it's very easy to make a mistake, even in a nice day. If it's a cloudy day, you have a double problem. Because it's cloudy, and you think it's later, it's really earlier, you think it's earlier, it's really later, you don't know. So Mela, the Chachamim pulled back the prohibition, they made it a little earlier. 1 hour or 2 hours. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir argue about that. Whether it's 1 hour or 2 hours. But everybody holds chametz eni Yisrael mishei shayis ulamayla. Everybody holds that biblically, min haTorah chametz is forbidden only from the end of 6 hours and up. That means if day starts at 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 is the end of 6 hours, 12:01, 12 plus, that's when the prohibition of chametz begins. You have to get rid of the chametz, you're not allowed to eat chametz anymore. If so, ask the Gemarah a question, v'nivdoik b'shis. Why are we doing b'dikas chametz the night before? You should check chametz when? On the 6th hour. 11 o'clock in the morning, Erev Pesach, that's when the Chazal should say, go check for your chametz. You have a full hour. You know how large their houses were, right? You know how big their houses were? Sometimes if I had a house, more than one bedroom, it was a chiddush. Usually you had a house, and in that house everybody slept, and everybody ate. You had sometimes one bed. I don't know if you ever saw even houses in the 1700s and 1800s. You could go visit communities in America that still maintain it. You can have a bed that was used by 10 people in the family. They slept in the width of the bed, and especially when it was winter, they wanted to do that because their bodies pressed together like the penguins in Antarctica. The reason they survive is because their bodies are pressed together, so they would press their bodies together. That's how you have 10 people in a family. Sometimes one room. If you had 2 rooms, you were already a gvir. Rabbi Yossi says in Masechta Shabbos, the definition of a wealthy man is kol sheyesh le beis hakisei samach l'shulchanai. You have a table and you have a beis hakisei, you're a gvir adir. That's it. So how long does b'dikas chametz take? The chametz takes an hour. Now remember, we know there's something called snacks. The musig of snacks didn't exist. You needed bread, you had to have wheat, and there's no grocery stores. You buy food, you buy nuts. We don't even understand what life was like. Our life is all substitutes, compensations. We even think about the farm. Is it a good harvest? Who knows if it's a good harvest? Who cares if it's a good harvest? If you're not getting wheat from Montana or Kentucky, you'll get wheat from China. They'll export it. We don't even understand these things. That's the blessings of modernity, but it also detaches us from a lot of nature, from a lot of reality. So therefore, you have a small house. V'nivdik b'shiz. Do b'dikas chametz in the 6th hour? That's the question. Let's see Rashi. Bein l'Reb Meir, bein l'Reb Yehuda. The iflag of masnissen bar chakad avad rabbanan lo yiraisa. They argue how far back you go before 12. But chametz einay aser min haTorah b'vayiro b'achila l'mishei shoyis. Min haTorah, chametz is not forbidden to have and to eat, only from 6 hours and more. How do we know? Maybe not. K'diyalef l'kamon min ach chilek. We're going to learn it out on Daf Hey from a pasuk ach b'yom harishon tashbisu, that the mitzvah of tashbisu, to get rid of chametz, is in the middle of the day. Umin lo yisishchat al chametz, and another pasuk says don't slaughter the carbon pesach when you have chametz, and the slaughtering of the carbon pesach only happened after midday erev pesach. Before midday, we don't care if you have chametz. We don't care. Frag the Gemarah nivdik chametz b'tchilas sheish. Do b'dikas chametz in the beginning of the 6th hour. V'koydem isura yivarenu. And before the Isur, before the time of the Isur, you'll destroy the chametz. Lama li lakdume kulahai. Why do you have to do it so early, a night earlier? Bishlemi or yimamahu. If you say, why is this Gemarah coming now? If you say means day, ikilitirutze, you can answer. The masnisinami b'sheish kamar. You could say means day, and it means taka, the beginning of the 6th hour. Because you need an hour for b'dikas chametz. Now, of course, if you have a huge house and you need 3 hours for b'dikas chametz, then don't start at 11. Then start at 9. And if you have a mansion or 3 mansions, do the night before, do a day before, do 3 days before. But the chi of b'dikas chametz is just to get rid of the chametz before the Isur. Again, classically, they had very small houses. Not a lot of food, no pantries with mashke, with vodka, with frozen pizza, with frozen kishkes, with frozen berekesen, with frozen donuts in the basement and here and in the storage house with more danishes and more bagels here and there. Don't go in, you get rid of the chametz and you're done. V'nivdik b'shis. That's what Rashi says. Aval hashta tiksha. Now that everybody holds Oir's night, we have a problem. That's the Gemarah now. Once we established Oir, if I say Oir's day, maybe Taka means Oir our boss, it means the day of our boss, or do b'dikas chametz. Before you got an Isser. You got to get rid of chametz, get rid of chametz. You need a half an hour, do it a half an hour. You need 5 minutes, do it 5 to 12. Do it 10 to 12. I don't care. The point is, do it right before, not earlier. What do you have to make a guy? What are you making a new mitzvah? What's this new mitzvah? It says up somewhere in Torah that there's a night of Dikas Chametz. What new mitzvah? Let the night of Erev Pesach be a tranquil, serene night. And for the Gemarah, maybe you're going to answer me, Zrizin Magdim Mitzvahs. We have a principle that's Zrizin Magdim Mitzvahs. That there's a very special quality to do a mitzvah as early as possible, to do it with zrizus. How do they type zrizin in the? The zealous ones, the people who care, who are passionate, do the mitzvahs earlier because they're zealous about it. So that's why they said, let's do it bezrizus. Let's do it with zealousness. Let's do it early. The Gemarah says, excuse me, nivdik mitzafra. What does that mean? Maybe you should do it a week before. Maybe do it a year. Do it a half a year before. Zizim akdim mitzvahs means when you're mechuyev in the mitzvah. So I could say nivdik mitzafra. Do it in the morning. That I hear. In other words, you'll say zizim akdim mitzvahs. Let's go get a shofar now. Zizim akdim mitzvahs. Let's read the Megillah. Zizim akdim mitzvahs means when you have the mitzvah. Let's do b'dikas chametz on Purim. Let's do b'dikas chametz on Chanukah. There's no mitzvah. The mitzvah of chametz is Erev Pesach by day. So you're going to tell me instead of doing it 11, we're going to do it in the morning. Why in the morning? This already have premises. Have a precedent. The Kislev, the Pasuk says in Tazriya, on the 8th day you do a bris. Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, from the Pasuk we see the entire day is fine for a bris. The 8th day is B'limul B'sar Lasa. Ella shezrizin magdim mitzvahs. But those who are zealous for mitzvahs do it earlier, and therefore they do the bris as early as possible in the morning. A bris you can't do at night, no. We'll see in a moment. Shenemar, the pasuk says by Avraham Avinu, Vayashkem Avraham b'boker. It says by the Akedah, right? Yeah, Avraham Avinu woke up early in the morning. Why? Why did he wake up early in the morning? What's the Torah trying to teach us? The Torah is trying to teach us a lesson. Not just it happened to be he woke up early in the morning. But the teachers is rizin magdim mitzvahs. But what do we see here? Why didn't he go the night before? Why didn't Avraham Avinu go the night before? Let's see Rashi. Nivdik mitzafra. The ika hagdamel is rizim. I understand. Instead of doing it 11, we'll do it 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning. Kedashkech gabe milah. We see by milah that you do it in the morning. Ubizrizusei da Avraham. So Rabbi Michal Aaron says it's not fair because a bris you can't do at night, but b'dikas chametz you can do at night. Ubizrizusei da Avraham. What do we see by the zrizus of Avraham? Shenemar v'yashkem Avraham b'boker shelo himtin ad hanetzach chama umikol mokem balayla lo hiktem. Avram didn't wait till sunrise. Vayashkem Avram b'boker. By sunrise, everybody is up. They didn't even think that people could sleep through sunrise. But Avram didn't wait for that. Right away, he woke up in the morning. In other words, at dawnbreak or before dawnbreak. By the way, Stam, an interesting observation. What do you see from here? Avram slept the night before. Think about that. Think about that. Avram slept the night. Hashem told him, Kachna, as bincha sichidcha shavta Yitzchak. And he went to sleep. Wachnacht for the Akedah? With a party? Vayashkem Avram b'boker. The Kotzker Rebbe said that's the greatest part of the story. Avram can't legen schlaf. Avram could go to sleep the night before. Think about that. Right. If he didn't sleep, it's not Vayashkem. Exactly. He didn't rise. He was up all... Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Vayashkem sounds like he woke up. Right. Why not go the night before? And the answer is because the night before is not in the gather of Zrizin Magdim Mitzvahs. Just like we're not going to do B'dikas Chametz on Purim, unless you're traveling. We're not going to do B'dikas Chametz on Chanukah. We're not preparing for a shofar today because Zrizin Magdim Mitzvahs, because it applies to Rosh Hashanah. B'dikas Chametz has to do with Pesach. Erev Pesach, 12 o'clock, that's the time. You have to do it a little earlier because 12 o'clock you got to get rid of the chametz. So you have to find the chametz. You want to do Zizin Makdimin, go to the morning. The night before, Vasapis. There's no concept of Zizin Makdimin Lemitzvahs the night before, just like the day before. That's the big question of the Gemarah. And yet our Mishnah said the night before you do B'dikas Chametz. Obviously it's not a mitzvah in our Torah. Torah never says do B'dikas Chametz the night before. Torah says you have to get rid of chametz. But Mela, as we learned in the Iran, you have to do b'dikas chametz to get rid of chametz, if you're not going to do bittul, especially. However, when? Right before. You want to do zrizim akdim mitzvahs, do it in the morning. That's the shaila. Yeah. Just fast. We'll do another 5 minutes, because I just want to finish here the question and the answer. But I want you to take a look. Very interesting question in Tosfos. Shnema vayashkem Avram babayker. Vim toimar, heichi muchich mahaykra zizim akdim lemitzvah makdim in tzvei mitzafra. How do you learn from this that you don't do earlier than the morning because Avram went in the morning? The Gemara in Maseches Chulin learns out from this that a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, should never go alone at night. And that's why Avram waited till the morning. In other words, could be Avram would have gone at night, mitzvah mitzvah. But because of the dangers of night, he didn't want to travel alone at night. So b'meila, you can't learn from Yashkem Avram Baboyke that Zrizin Makdim Mitzvahs only goes to the morning, goes back to the morning. Maybe Zrizin Makdim Mitzvahs is already the night before. V'haraya, the Gemara learns from this pasuk, Talmid Chacham shouldn't go Yechidi Balayla. That's why he had to wait till the morning. If that's the reason, if that's the reason, yeah? It's not mitzvah Zrizin Makdim Mitzvahs. He would have really gone at night. But there's a limit here, and from here we learn you shouldn't go Yechidi Balayla. What's your response? Oh, good question. Yeah. He wasn't Yechidi, yeah. He went with Yitzchak and Shnei Na'arav. Shnei Na'arav, yeah.
And what's about Talmid Chacham?
Talmid Chacham means a Talmid of Chachma. Talmid of Chachma. Koyach ma. V'yesh loymar.
You could have waited till later in the day also, so it still shows. You didn't have to go so
But it doesn't prove that the night before is out of the field of Zizim Makdimin. V'yesh loymar, do hachem muchich mikra, da akeda. The lahaya nimna Avram elatzas yichidi balayla, the shluchei mitzvah, eina nizoikin, v'oy de shnei na'arav, hayu imoi. It's clear from the Akedah that would not be a reason Avram wouldn't go out the night before. First of all, he's going for a mitzvah. Shluchei mitzvah, don't get harmed, so he doesn't have to worry. Second of all, he's not alone. It's interesting, Tosfos brings the first explanation before the second one. You would think the second one is Mer Balabatish, yeah? Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim mamish. Malachim mamish.
The general rule is a person shouldn't go out at night, but you're going to say specifically Talmid Chacham shouldn't go out at night, so maybe there's an extra reason why.
Okay, good. So Tosfos says, V'hasa muchach, that is what you have to know, Chumash. V'hasa muchach, Yashkem Avram Baboyke, the Ksiv Gab is doim. It's a different Vayashkem. We hear Vayashkem Avram Baboyke, we know that there's another Vayashkem Avram Baboyke. In Parshas Vayera, before the Akedah, after the destruction of Zdoim, Avram wakes up in the morning to go look at the havoc and destruction of Zdoim. Deloi haya mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah to look at Zdoim destroyed. V'yechidi haya. There he went out alone. Shaloi ratza sheyiru b'mapalasan shel Zdoim. He didn't want others should see what happened to Zdoim, the lads over there. So he went alone, and it wasn't a mitzvah. From there you learn al yetze yechidi balayla. That vayashkem. Our Vayashkim here, you learn that Zrizin Makdimin Lemitzvahs. That's why he woke up early in the morning, but not the night before. Because Zrizin Makdimin applies only to the day itself. And yet by B'dikas Chametz, it's a big Chiddush, we're doing it early. So the Gemara answers, Amar Reb Nachman by Yitzchak. B'shah shebnei Adam mitzuyin bebateihem. The Chazal were simply examining the reality. When people are in their homes, and we have to understand what this means. Sun rose, you were out of your house. You weren't in your farm, you weren't in your field. There was no food, there were no animals. A person was out of the house during the day. It wasn't a simple thing to say to everybody, we're doing b'dikas chametz. Again, it's hard for us to understand this a little bit. When you sit in your basement sometimes for 60 years and you run your multi-million-dollar business, with the press of a couple of buttons. Not everybody, but some people. But they were out of the house. They wanted to make a time when everybody is anyway home, which is, of course, evening, which is also different, because today, with light, with electricity, you could be out all night. But then when it was dark, you came home. Another point is, as we're going to see later, you have to use a candle for b'dikas chametz. And when is a candle appreciated? When is it usable? In the evening. Zok Rashi, the day is going to eclipse it. What's this reason? Do it by day with the sunlight. We're going to learn later on Daf Zayin, you need a ner. So those are the two reasons Reb Nachum bar Yitzchak gave for b'dikas chametz in the evening. Right, but the question is why establish it at night? You're saying once it's night, you're going to use a candle. But do it by day. So the answer is, one is because people are home. And if people wouldn't be home, a lot of people wouldn't do b'dikas chametz in the beginning of the 6th hour. You could tell everybody, go home. But a guy is busy, he's running, he's far, he's involved, and b'dikas chametz won't happen, at least for some people. At night, everybody's anyway home. So what do we do tonight? Tonight's activity is b'dikas chametz. Isn't it fun? Huh? No, they're not home. That's the point. They're not home. People dafen schlafen euch. They will stop me. Take away. But you need time. You need time. You need some time. But an hour, whatever it is, an hour. Huh? Alefel and Afeder. That's later. That was already added later.
So what's the limit of till when can you do it? Once it gets there, you can't already, there's no limit.
B'dikas chametz has no limit. If you don't do it at night, you do it by day, afternoon. If you don't do it before Pesach, you do it on Pesach. You do it a whole Pesach. If you didn't do it on Pesach, you do it after Pesach. Chametz shavar of a Pesach. The chametz that was there Pesach, you do it after Pesach. A whole year. The chametz that went through Pesach, you have to be boidik. But b'dikas chametz in its original takana is a whole Pesach. And as a result of this, as we will see next time, there's a dramatic difference of the takana of b'dikas chametz and every other takana of the Rabbanim or mitzvah, because every single one has an end time, and this doesn't have an end game.
So the candle is still.
As we'll see, a big chiddush of the Balatanya Shulchan Aruch Harav.
Candle versus flashlight today.
Okay, you mean for the Churim and Zdakim. Okay, we'll get to that, Av Zayin. Beseder. Have a wonderful day. Oh, Rabbi Sai, I'm traveling tonight to London for a few days. I'm going to be back on Tuesday. I'm going to be back on Tuesday.
No, Tuesday there's no flight.
Yeah, I'm landing a little late on Tuesday. Tuesday night, we're having a big event here in the tent for Yat Kislev, the yard site of the Magid, the Chagagul of the Balatanya. Here in the tent, everybody is invited. It's Tuesday night, and the Shia will resume Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll have next week Friday. I just don't want to lose so many days. And Chanukah, I'm away. I have a simcha elsewhere. And if you could chazah the Gemarah, and you could go further also. Yeah. Everybody have a beautiful day.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.